But as was stated, my name is Sonya Barnes, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about the resources that Team Nutrition provides to help program operators and manufacturers to meet the meal pattern requirements. All right, so it sounds like a few folks are familiar with at least the Child Nutrition Program meal pattern requirements. So how about the Food Buying Guide? Has anyone heard of that particular publication? Oh, wow, not too many. Okay. So I'll just let you know that the Food Buying Guide is essentially a huge manual that contains food yield information. And so it's available to program operators who want to know how much food to purchase, as well as how those foods contribute to the meal pattern requirements. So it's typically a multi-year process every time that we update the Food Buying Guide. It contains over 2,100 food yields for foods commonly served in the child nutrition programs. So we actually went through the process when the school meal patterns were updated back in 2012 to separate the Food Buying Guide, and we had one specifically for school meal programs. And then here recently, the CACFP, Child and Adult Care Food Program meal patterns were also updated, which further aligned, some of the program requirements. So then our branch then took the charge, and we recombined the Food Buying Guide once again into one centralized resource. And we made that available earlier this year, and so we've gotten some great feedback. All right, now another thing that we did with this particular update to the Food Buying Guide is we put our heads together and we kind of wanted to address some of the stakeholder feedback that had been received thus far. Folks really, like the Food Buying Guide, however, they just felt like it makes you do too many hand calculations and there's so much room for user error. So what we did was we decided to release the interactive Food Buying Guide web-based tool, and that's going to actually allow a lot of the same information to be accessed at your fingertips. So it basically allows you to search and navigate those food yields instead of searching through pages and pages of a manual, and it takes away some of the hand calculations for you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. It also allows folks to compare food yields. So if a person wants to compare, cooked carrots versus canned carrots to determine which is best for their program to purchase, they can do that with the interactive Food Buying Guide web-based tool. And you can even also create a favorite foods list, very similar to some of the popular recipe websites available. I will say some of the but intricate grains that aren't necessarily always served in child nutrition programs aren't necessarily listed explicitly in the Food Buying Guide yields. However, you can still credit them using the recipe analysis workbook or product formulation statement workbook. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those now. So the recipe analysis workbook is a component that we made available in the interactive Food Buying Guide, also based on stakeholder feedback. And so this one is specifically for program operators. So when a program operator is registered on our tool, they basically can go on, search for their creditable ingredients in a recipe, and then once that populates, they will also add the quantities, and then they'll receive a meal pattern contribution statement that they can keep on file. So it takes some of the guesswork out for them because they don't have to actually perform the calculations of the actual yield and determining the contribution all on their own. And that's something that we really have gotten very positive feedback on. All right, now for, this is just actually a quick visual of the contribution statement for a recipe. This is one of our USDA standardized recipes for confetti soup. But again, it just allows the program operator to print this and keep it on file so that when they have an administrative review, they can show this is how the recipe that they served credited toward the meal pattern requirements. All right, now specifically for the food manufacturers, we also, kept you in mind as well. We created something very similar to the recipe analysis workbook, but this one is actually a product formulation statement workbook. So just really quickly, has anyone ever heard of a product formulation statement? Okay, a few folks. So if you serve to schools or other child nutrition programs, you probably would know that they always want to know what is the contribution of your product, especially if it's not explicitly listed in the food buying guide. So we, in our branch, we have made available templates for product formulation statements that manufacturers can use. However, we again took this a step further, taking out the guesswork, and similar to the recipe analysis workbook, anyone who is registered as a food manufacturer can go on, choose the creditable ingredients for the product, also the quantity that is available in each serving, and then they will get a certified contribution statement. So when I say certified, it's certified by the manufacturer, not certified by USDA. There is still some room for user error because you have to make sure you choose the correct yield information. And other than that, though, the tool will auto-populate the information. So, but it's still something that the manufacturer can certify and say this is the correct and true information for the meal pattern contribution. All right, so this is just a really quick talk today. In my branch, typically, we do different talks, sometimes lasting about 2 hours, in terms of walking people through some of the intricate components and getting them to get some hands-on practice. But I did want to point out that if you want to kind of get some feel for the interactive web-based tool, you can go right into the help section of the tool, and there's a user guide as well as a training video that can kind of lead you along the way. Now, one other quick thing I wanted to mention is that our branch was responsible for releasing the Food Buying Guide mobile app. So has anyone heard of the Food Buying Guide mobile app by chance? Okay, well, that means I'm in the right place. So hopefully you all, now that you have heard about it, you can download it. So it's going to have some of the same features as the interactive web-based tool, but it definitely allows you to make those quick decisions on the go if you need some quick information. So we are still currently completing enhancements for the food buying guide, so stay tuned. Some folks have heard about the food buying guide calculator. We're now going to be embarking upon adding that functionality, which should be available hopefully early in the next year. All right, so here's just our homepage for the food buying guide on the Team Nutrition website, and here you can access all of our food buying guide related tools. And if you go to the Team Nutrition homepage, you can also access everything available through Team Nutrition. All right, so this one is the menu planner for school meals. So this particular publication, I believe, was last updated, and I want to say around 2006. But we did embark upon updating it again with the release of the new meal patterns, and there were quite a few things that happened along the way, but we were able to finally get that out in September. So as of about a month and a half after we released it, about 26,000 hits had already gone to the homepage. So we've gotten some, definitely positive feedback about it. And I just wanted to kind of let you know a little bit about what's included in the menu planner. It has 7 comprehensive chapters, appendices, over 25 school spotlights, so different things that schools are doing in terms of best practices that help them to successfully meet the meal patterns. Also check your understanding quizzes and food safety tips, and even things to help folks get ready for their administrative review at the school level. So a lot of times even food manufacturers who are either new to serving the child nutrition program audience, they kind of want to get a feel using this publication, and they've been stating to us that they can do that with this menu planner for school meals. Actually, I meant to mention really quickly as well that the menu planner is based on the final rule that is upcoming regarding the meal pattern flexibilities. It's only for this school year, so as soon as that's out, no pressure, Tim, we will, hit the ground running and go ahead and update to make that publication applicable to school years after this one. So just really quickly, I know this is a whole grains conference. The whole grain resource is another publication that our branch has released previously. It is based on the current meal pattern requirements for grains, so it includes a full in-depth explanation of the whole grain rich criteria, and also just how to meet the meal pattern requirements for grains in general, how to get kids excited about whole grains, and how to serve them in familiar forms that they know and enjoy. So it will be updated once the policy The policy items have been cleared. However, it is still a great resource. You can still use it to meet the current meal pattern requirements, or it would still even be applicable if you wanted to meet them after the flexibilities are released. All right, I know we're a little short on time, but just to let you know, we also have standardized recipes available through USDA. This particular collection was a previous collection of USDA standardized recipes for childcare in schools that we revamped, again with the release of the updated meal pattern requirements, to make available over 200 recipes that feature whole grains, beans, and then red, orange, and dark green vegetables. They're all low in total fat and saturated fat, so we've gotten lots of positive feedback. We did test them with children, so every single grains recipe in this collection does meet the whole grain rich criteria. So this is another resource you can use for ideas or if you're working with school partners. All right, we also have the recipes for healthy kids, cookbooks for schools, homes, and child care centers. These are all made available also on our teen nutrition website, but these were the results of a nationwide competition that included chefs and students and community members, and they also emphasize some of the same items I just mentioned, the dark green and orange vegetables, legumes, and then also, of course, whole grains. So these particular recipes are also low in fat, saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. And again, they're winning recipes from across the nation, so we went through a very rigorous process, and we're happy to announce these 30 winning recipes. And the cookbooks are all available through our website as well. All right, so one last resource to talk to you about, and this is the Child Nutrition Labeling Verification and Reporting System. So I know a lot of folks may not have heard about child nutrition labeling, so let me just ask about that quickly. How many of you even know what a child nutrition label is? All right, I see a couple of hands. Does anyone want to share their, no? All right, I understand. So a child nutrition label essentially is when a manufacturer goes through a process where they submit an application through the Agriculture Marketing Service and they have a child nutrition program's contribution statement on their label. So this one is actually warranted and approved by USDA. So we stand behind the crediting that is on a CN label. Now, this is only, though, available to products that actually have a meat alternate component. So if you're just producing grains, it doesn't really apply. However, if you're partnering with someone else who is creating a multi-component product, then that would be an eligible item for a CN label. So what we did with the CN label verification reporting system is that we had heard folks saying that there were either false CN labels floating around or CN labels that had misinformation. So we kind of went and put our heads together and came up with this system, which allows folks to verify the CN label that they purchase is accurate prior to purchase. And as a manufacturer, you can go on and see when your product expires and just get some information in that regard. So it also even has the crediting information that is listed on the child nutrition label.